Welcome back, and we start with the dailies this morning, and our public affairs analyst, Mr. Dayo Akintobi, joins us on the program. Good morning. Welcome.
Good morning to you.
Yeah, you're looking dapper as always. You know, we should come to you for lessons on how to start off the week and how to end as well.
I'm humbled, thank you.
All right, let's start with New Telegraph this morning, and of course, it reflects on the start of the program, you know, some of our thinking. Genocide against Christians, allegations, Tinubu to meet Trump soon. Of course, that's ascribed to the presidency. And we have some writers here to give us an insight into how the Telegraph is reporting it. Don't test Trump. U.S. won't look away. That's ascribed to Rep. Miley Moore, warning Mr. President. That's a House of Reps member in the U.S. And of course, there's this one. We're working to resolve misrepresentation of Nigeria. That's ascribed to our own representatives here. NAS slow response may have prompted Trump's hammer. That's ascribed to New Telegraph's investigation. But of course, you know, Mr. Akintobi, another part of this narrative, some would disagree vehemently, you know, that there isn't genocidal killings against Christians when you look at the trajectory of attacks in Nigeria's north central plateau, Benue, and the U.S. lawmakers, or if you like, media, they're backing this up with visits to Nigeria. We've seen commentary on mainstream media about their own investigations in internally displaced persons camps, where interviews they have conducted are to the effect that most of those who are putting up in those camps are Christians in the north. How do you weigh in on all of this?
One thing is clear is that Nigeria does have an insecurity problem, and killings are actually happening in Nigeria. Now, who appointed President Trump the policeman of the world to where he will now interpose himself in a sovereign country's affairs? It speaks to the fact that our public perception in terms of the way the information about what is happening in Nigeria is leading to global perception that our government is not addressing the issue properly. Whether that is true or not is an internal issue. I don't think people in other countries, in other places who are not front and center in the middle of the mayhem, have the moral right or even have the factual evidence to be able to make claims as to what is happening or not. Now, if you look in the social media space over the weekend, opinions are almost evenly split between those who believe there's a systemic genocidal effort to eliminate Christians across Nigeria and those who think that all religious faiths are being targeted. So the question is, what is actually the truth? The one thing that's indisputable is that this problem has defied solution for decades. It's a 20-year problem that succeeding governments have failed to resolve. So it looks as if the government is either incompetent or unwilling or not willing to make the tough decisions. We see superficial moves of changing service chiefs. When I was here last week, we were applauding the fact that a recent revamp of the security architecture had occurred. But my view then was we've had many of these in the past and it hasn't addressed the issue. So I think President Trump should look more inward and address the issues in his own country, gun violence, mass shootings, all kinds of issues like that, that is bedeviling the American society. I hear a lot of conspiracy theories about, oh, he's after our oil, he doesn't like our support of the wants of Palestinian states, the new Dangote refinery that is going to create mayhem to America's dominance in supplying refined products. I think that it's a lot deeper than that. I think there are more political underpinnings to why America is suddenly sticking its nose into what is really not its business. But we have abdicated the moral right to stop other people from expressing an opinion, because globally, all you hear in the news is these continued killings every day. And I think, my own personal opinion, is that they are targeted killings. Yes, in the Benue and the Plateau, you see Christians being killed. Zamfara, which has had one of the worst insecurity problems, and Borno, they're 95% Muslim. And yet, killings are happening in those places just as rampantly and wildly as in the Plateau and Benue states as well. So I do agree that certain people are targeted for elimination. It depends on the locus of operation. Those in the states where Muslims are most populous, those states that are under attack, there Muslims are being killed. The states where Christians predominate. Look, for example, what happened in Owo. In Owo, they went into a church. So that was specifically targeting Christians.
And there's southern Kaduna as well, where you have predominantly Christians.
Absolutely. But in the last week, we've had situations up north where Muslims have been killed. So how do you now say that you use the statistics to count and say there have been more Christians killed than Muslims have, or there have been more Muslims killed than Christians have, and you now use that to make a broad-based generalization that there is a specific genocidal, I heard it on the news, an American commentator said there's a genocidal convention going on in Nigeria, as if there's a systemic, concerted conspiracy of people who sat down and mapped out where are Christians, where are all the Christians, let's go target them here, here, here. I don't think that is what is happening here. But without a doubt, we have an insecurity problem that the government has failed to adequately address. Well, when the new service chiefs was sworn in last week, President Tinubu gave them a charge. That charge sounds like a broken record because we've heard it all before in the past, and it hasn't made that much of a difference. But I think rather than criticizing America for their interest in this situation, I think we should engage them more positively on how can we work together to resolve this issue, as opposed to threats of invading us. Can we deal with technology transfer? Can we talk about military support and aid? Look, for example, when Trump was in office the first time, he was the one that engineered this Super Tucano sale to us. And when he came back the second time, he saw that the military aid he gave to us hadn't reduced the problem at all. So he's had an interest in this not just today, but since 2020 and before that. So I would say that while I'm not happy that a foreign country is poke-nosing into our business and is telling us off on a global stage, at the same time, I think what that should do is encourage us internally to unify and work on this problem with homegrown solutions. And where we need help, we should ask for it, but we should not necessarily kowtow to foreign interests who feel like because they're dominant in world politics and world geopolitics, they can tell us where to get off the train. I don't agree with that.
Well, Mr. Akintobi, because this is a major concern, it reflects on the major newspapers today. Take a look at the Nigerian News Direct. It says, Tinubu to meet Trump amid U.S. threat. Underneath that rider there, it says, cut ties with U.S. if Trump fails to withdraw military threat. That's coming from Sheikh Gumi. I mean, really very controversial Sheikh. But so we are anticipating this particular meeting, and going by Mr. Trump's meetings with presidents around the world, I don't know if you're worried, Mr. Akintobi. I don't know if you're worried, or if I should be asking you, how worried are you? Remember when President of Ukraine was, visited Mr. Trump as well, how he was practically humiliated, not just by the president, the vice president, J.D. Vance, and even the media questioned, the media in the U.S. went as far as being so petty to ask a president of a nation why he was dressed that way. So this meeting, this high-profile meeting we're anticipating, do you think that, I mean, this is our president, the president of the most populous black nation in the world. Are you worried? If you had the chance to speak to Mr. President Tinubu, what would you say to him in terms of preparing to face Mr. Trump?
The way to handle a bully is to stare him down. And the one thing that sticks in my head. I remember when President Trump met with those 5 African leaders, and he was shocked that they could speak English eloquently.
Yeah.
And that goes to show how little he knows about the world outside America, especially Africa, which makes it difficult to accept his pontification that he understands the problem and has the solution and can issue threats. I believe that President Tinubu has what it takes to hold his own in a meeting against Trump. Why? President Tinubu has the facts, as opposed to what President Trump has could be disinformation or inaccurate information. So President Tinubu will be discussing from a position of strength in that he has the data, the statistics, the information, and the knowledge about the true situation on ground in Nigeria. So what his thrust will be to correct what we all believe is a misconception on President Trump's part. We're not doubting that we have an insecurity problem. We are not disputing or denying that Nigerians are being killed of all religious faiths, and that in some areas Christians are persecuted, in other areas Muslims are persecuted, and I won't even go beyond saying even Ifa worshippers and traditional religions are not also being persecuted in some other areas. So we do have an insecurity problem, and I believe if that is the rules for the discussion, no matter how condescending President Trump tries to be, as you said, he'll try and bully you, he'll try and belittle you. And
ridicule you.
Yes, I think President Tinubu has enough on the ball in terms of political strategy, in front of intellectual capacity. I think he's a smart, intelligent person.
But does he even need to meet with Mr. Trump? There are those who argue that why you're a sovereign nation, why head for, why it looks like it's Nigeria that is practically begging to go meet Trump to clarify from Mr. Trump, who is the president of the world, like some people would target the president of the US. Does he have to go even meet him in the first place?
Well, remember, there's a threat of cutting off aid. There's a threat of sanctioning some of the political players themselves. One of the newspapers today is saying 12 governors, some judicial officers, they all risk visa bans, asset freezing, and all kinds of other sanctions if they are proven to have aided and abetted any sort of religious persecution. Then, of course, there's aid and there's trade. And of course, you know, Nigeria is doing a lot with China now, doing a lot with Russia, and America is not too happy about that. But the truth is, there's still a very strong relationship between the US and Nigeria, both in trade, in information exchange, in even human capital exchange, that is a very diplomatic togetherness that we wouldn't want to rock that boat too much. So I don't think he should shun such an opportunity for such a meeting if one arises. I read somewhere today that it's America's vice president that's going to meet with President Tinubu. If that's the case, I don't think there's parity there. I think that in itself sends a message that we're looking down on you. If it's the vice president of America that will meet with if it's J.D. Vance that is scheduled to meet with the president, I would say he doesn't need to go. But if it is president to president, there's a lot to be gained, first of all, to correct any misperceptions, and then to also work out a working relationship about how America can assist in this fight. Because it seems to be a fight that has evaded solution. So we do need help. And President Tinubu can create an opportunity, first of all, in his presentation, in the fact that how he paints Nigeria as a country that's almost uniformly divided between Christians and Muslims, and how we've succeeded in living in harmony all these years, and how this whole thing is just a disgruntled group, a very minority, very small minority who's creating all this mayhem, even though they are divided into different groups. You have Boko Haram, you have ISWAP, you have kidnappers, you have bandits, you have all sorts. But at the end of the day, they still constitute a very small minority of our population. And if you look at all of us as a people, by and large, most of us are happy to live together in harmony, in peace, as one people. And we will not allow a small group of misfits to destabilize that. I think he can sell that message very well to the American president, and it'll make a big difference.
And beyond, you know, putting the record straight about what is exactly is really happening in Nigeria, is also the need to demonstrate to the US president, if indeed he meets with Trump or even Vance, the political commitment, to tackling these issues. The nation watched and in confusion when the president doubled down on the nature of the killings in Benue being religious, communal, rather than what the people have over the years said is a systematic attempt to dispossess them of their ancestral land, and that the killings were deliberate and targeted. But the president doubled down on what he thought to be the reason of, for the killings. And those are the, factors that aid our confusion rather than our clarity on what the administration is doing or its commitment, to tackling these killings.
I'll give you two examples.
Yeah.
Look at the Dapchi girls, for example.
Yeah.
110 of them kidnapped. All of them were released except Leah Sharibu. And guess what? She was the only Christian in the group. Yeah. So what does that telegraph in terms of the reasoning or the rationale behind that happening? Look at the situation of Deborah Samuels, for example. There were 2 other people who are Muslims within that same period who were also convicted of blasphemy, who served a prison term or who served a term of punishment of some sort for the same exact thing Deborah Samuel was accused of doing. In her case, she was lynched and killed. So there is no doubt that there are some very narrow parochial interests that have an agenda behind these killings. And as you said, the president could have taken a more public stand about it when he had the opportunity to, and he missed that opportunity. So maybe this is a chance to tell the global community that he's committed to the fight, that he himself has no skin in the game, so to speak, in terms of whether Muslims or Christians or traditional religions are treated any differently from how he sees it. We're all the same. We're all Nigerians. And religion does not divide us, should not divide us, despite our differences.
Indeed. There's this Nigeria which is, focusing on politics of the main opposition party, but we're totally out of time. We've dwelt so much on the threats of invasion as a result of the alleged position of the U.S. on killings that are genocidal against the Christians.
Yes.
And, rightly so, by the way. So we'll anchor at this point, and thank you very much on Mr. Dayo Akintobi for coming on the program this morning. We do appreciate your thoughts, as always.
My pleasure.
Mr. Dayo Akintobi is a public affairs analyst.
Good morning, Nigeria.
We'll take a moment now. When we return, we'll begin the very first leg of our conversation. What is the implication of the proposed 15% tariff on imported petrol for Nigerians, especially you who must buy petrol every other day? Stay with us for this first one. We'll be right back.